Good afternoon, also from my side. Thank you very much, John. Very nice presentation. I will try to make it as exciting as his presentation was. As Apostolos mentioned, I come from the dark side of Hall machinery. And today we will be discussing about fire incidents, which apart from being very costly, they also pose a significant hazard for the crew and the environment. So first of all, let's have a look at the main categories of fires that we encounter. Of course, we have the most frequent type of fire incidents that we see from our perspective, which is engine room fires. We have fire in the accommodation area in way of containers, the cargo holds, and ro-ro vessels. If we look at them one by one, starting from the most frequent type of claims we see, these are the engine room fires, and it has been established that the dominant cause of these incidents is lube oil or fuel oil mist spraying from piping onto hot, unprotected surfaces. And it is very important to highlight at this stage that for this type of incidents mainly, preventing the engine room fire is very important and is a priority, but the time and the effectiveness of the response we consider is of similar importance because of the nature of the machinery and equipment in the engine room and the fact that the fire can spread very quickly. The effectiveness of the response is very important. We will very briefly touch upon the other types of fires, which is fire in the accommodation area. Usually, these are of smaller extent compared to engine room fires. We have had a recent case where the fire started because of a faulty charger in the crew's cabin. But they can also start not only from electrical or machinery malfunctions, but also for chemical reactions. For example, we also had a fire this year in the accommodation area, and specifically in the hospital compartment, where there was a medical solution stored in a glass bottle, which, due to the vibrations of the vessel, fell and broke next to a box full of hand sanitizers, which are very alcoholic. And this chemical reaction fueled the start of the fire. Yeah, it can be many different things in the accommodation area. Very briefly, cargo holds less frequent than the engine room fires, and we mainly see them when we carry scrap metal or self-heating cargoes like coal. Ro-ro carriers, a huge topic on itself, which I'm not going to touch. It requires the full day, most probably, if we want to analyze. The fires in these types of vessels can escalate very quickly. They're very difficult to be contained. And nowadays, there are specific considerations due to the electric and hybrid cars being transported and the specific requirements related to the transportation of these cargoes. Closing with the container vessels, at the Swedish Club, we do insure a lot of container vessels, so we have seen various types of claims related to fires on containers. And the potential causes we have identified are usually misdeclared cargo content or bad weather or bad stowage, which can cause a stack to collapse and then start the fire. In a particular recent case we had, the difficulties were mainly because no terminal would accept the vessel in such condition because of their environmental considerations, if they would accept the vessel in this condition to discharge these containers. And of course, they tend to be very complex cases due to the general average cargo pollution and wreck removal elements they involve. And of course, they also attract a lot of media attention. They look very fancy. Another important thing to mention about this type of fires is that most of the times with containers, we don't know what we are dealing with. So you may have a cargo and distinguish the fire there, but then because of the type of cargo, it may self-heat up and ignite again. So it's not an easy procedure for the firefighting. Moving on now to some statistics from the Swedish Club, we see that 50% of the fire claims we deal with, they're mainly on the machinery spaces. And the same percentage applies for the cost. So we see that 50% of the fire-related claims that we see, it's related again to engine room fires. However, when we compare fire and explosion incidents compared to other types of damages like contact collisions and heavy weather or groundings, we see that fires may happen at low frequency. In particular, we see in this graph that they represent around 2% compared to other types of incidents. But when it comes to cost, then the distribution is much higher, and they represent around 15% of the costs. And this is from the Nordic Marine Insurance statistics from 2018 to 2022. If we move on to 2023, we see a significant increase in the cost distribution. So we see the frequency is roughly the same, 2.7%, but the cost related to fire incidents has doubled from 15% to almost 27%. This is further confirmed by this graph, where you see a peak in 2023 with an average claim cost for fire-related incidents at 3.5 million, compared to other types of claims that they are not more than 1.5 in average, grounding, collisions, or machineries. It has been reported to the International Union of Marine Insurance. From 2008 to 2023, there were 56 incidents related to fire in the engine room, with a gross repair cost of $250 million. And it was identified that 60% of these incidents started because of a fuel or oil leakage onto a hot surface. So there is a need to study closer this fact, and if we can assess it further, we can say that leakage from high-pressure fuel pipes is under control because there's a double wall protection in this type of piping. But a defect on a low-pressure pipe can pose a greater safety hazard. So there is a need to address this problem and develop measures to reduce the possibility and this percentage of fire incidents starting from leakages, because they concern a high percentage. SOLAS regulations contain specific requirements on the design, construction, arrangement of this oil and fuel piping. And similarly, the Maritime Safety Committee has specific guidelines on the piping arrangement on board. From the studies of the fires reported to the IUMI, it was found that the requirements of SOLAS and MSC have not always been implemented. And this pertains both to the actual arrangement, but also the human element. So the IMO Maritime Safety Committee has recognized the need for a development of practical guidelines in order to improve the existing ones. There have been dialogues between Ajax and the IUMI since 2017, which resulted to the formation of Ajax-IUMI Correspondence Group, which worked together in order to identify gaps in these guidelines and advise some additions or improvements in way of those. And the Swedish Club technical team has been involved in putting together this draft proposal to the Maritime Safety Committee, which includes specifically recommendations, alterations, and dedicated measures in order to reduce the fires related to leakages from fuel and oil piping on board. This is from this summer. It's a very recent work. Of course, apart from that, generally at the Swedish Club, because we are also hull and machinery insurers, we extract data from the claims reported to us, and loss prevention team works closely with the claims team in order to assess the information we provide and make sure that they put together guidelines and measures to assist our members and the crew on board in whatever way handling these very difficult incidents. We have a lot of publications which are all available online if you would like to read. And if we can close this discussion, we can just note the main takeaway guidelines from these bulletins. So first of all, ensuring that the insulation on the piping is always in good condition. Thermal imaging can be used in order to address any unprotected hot surfaces. The crew need to routinely check and inspect the piping in case there is any leakage or any flange which has been loose. Any leakage should be immediately reported and dealt with. No combustible or flammable materials should be stored in machinery spaces. Ensure also that there is testing and checking of the passive safety devices, which are the fire dampers and the quick closing valves in the engine room, because this can prevent the fire to spread quickly. Make sure that the engine room alarm system is always functional and in good condition. Very importantly, the crew needs to be familiar with the firefighting system. I couldn't stress that more. We believe that human element is of utmost importance, as happens with everything, really. Fire drills need to be taken care of properly and not just be checklists. And as we said earlier, the response time is the most critical thing apart from the prevention. Thank you very much.